So we're going to share a lot about reset communities. And as you can see, reset is an acronym, and it stands for Resilient Ecosystems for Sustainable Engagement and Transformation. But the way we describe it is that we say that this is about supporting locally driven innovation, but it's global by intent. So I need to start by thanking the leaders from across Canada. And some of you are with us, but one that is most important in terms of getting me off on this foot is Carol Peterson from Alberta. And this initiative began as ACE communities in the province of Alberta. And Carol worked with others to generate $1 million grant. Half of it was from government and half of it was from oil companies. And, people kind of wondered, why would an oil company be interested in local communities? And it turns out that having jobs in communities, oil companies had jobs in these rural and remote communities. But the thing is, no one wanted to live there because of the lack of quality of life. Oil company money, they ended up giving us $500,000, and then the government of the province gave us another $500,000. And so Carol can relate to this because she was there at the very, very beginning, because while $1 million was a lot of money, our mission, our mandate was to take that $1 million and improve the quality of life across Alberta. And in rural Alberta alone, there are over 425 rural communities. They can be regions, they were villages, they were hamlets, but it was kind of an impossible. It was definitely a moonshot vision for sure. So we jumped in. That's really kind of how it happened. And there were mavericks involved, as there are on the call today. And throughout the journey, the mavericks taught us a great deal. So, and I guess none of us really were any superheroes in any way. None of us were wearing a cape that I could see. So it was definitely a challenge. We learned a lot. But we did fortunately attract other funding, and so we were able to make a significant impact. And so, the work really extended beyond Alberta after that into other parts of Canada. And then we've also received a lot of feedback from other countries and Catalyst members here who informed us a lot about how we could make a difference. So that's kind of the roots of this. And I don't really know how much you need to know about my biography. The reason I shared it is because I think the fact that my background is very eclectic, and I've worked in a lot of different sectors, and I think that was very helpful. Don't be fooled by this word actually meant a lot, but don't be fooled by me being recognized as a YWCA woman of distinction, because at one of the conferences where I was speaking, a very, very nervous young woman, instead of introducing me as a woman of distinction, introduced me as a woman of dysfunction. and I think that's probably a much more accurate description. So I think a colleague also once referred to me as being a spice rack of experience. So a lot of, I'm not sure how accurate that is, but I'm going to design this session to use about 30 minutes to apply this communication and learning strategy. It's a framework that I gathered, kind of developed and worked with others on when I was teaching at Niagara College. And it's one of the best models for being able to communicate and train others who may have different training and communication styles. So it's about the model, the framework is starting with the why. What is it we're going to do? How are we going to do it? And what if you want to be involved? And so that's how this is laid out. So why a different approach? What is it we're going to do? What did we learn from people like you? how are we going to do it? A lot of that is about strategies and tools. And then what if you want to be involved? So I thought it might make sense, because you can be thinking about this hopefully throughout the presentation, is that there's different ways to be involved. We are going to need coaches to coach the local reset catalyst teams. And a lot of you have that kind of experience. You can apply for your community to be considered as a demonstration community or a pilot community. We are also looking for funders and sponsors. You might simply be interested in being accredited as a systems catalyst, because what's one of the things that has involved to address the different skills that are needed for this different kind of work. And if your area of focus happens to be more specialized, as these demonstration communities, these pilot communities determine their priorities, you're going to be invited to add your services to this menu of possibilities. So if, for instance, your community determined that they needed, that food insecurity was an issue and they needed to focus on regenerative agriculture, for instance, then, and Laura's smiling, and that was directed to you, that's where someone like Laura could potentially fit in. Or at this point, you might just be interested in saying, hey, this is pretty interesting. Keep me on your mailing list and keep me updated. So any questions about that? I guess a lot of it will become clearer as we move through the presentation, but different possibilities. Okay, I'm going to start here, because I think so in many ways that we're all struggling with the complexity of the challenges and the opportunities that are available to us. I mean, there's so much going on in the world. And I think I just wanted to share this as an acknowledgement to let people know that you're not alone, that regardless of where we are all facing these kinds of complex issues. And I think in some ways, for some of us, it's kind of paralyzed us, because we don't know where to begin. Where do we start? And it's all interconnected, and yet we remain stuck in our silos. And that's really the issue that we are addressing. What I was drawn to, I kind of came through this ACE communities work and realized that we really did have a commitment to honor what we had learned from all of these amazing leaders across Alberta and then across the country. And I was looking for an opportunity and stumbled across Catalyst. At that time, Catalyst now was called Catalyst 2030. And then from there, I learned more about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And that became a really good fit. It's a really good fit for mavericks and social entrepreneurs, for sure, Catalyst now. But one of the things that I learned that just really stuck with me, and this is hard to believe, but it's coming from many sources. It's coming from the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, and the World Health Organization. We know that the 17 SDGs are the world's most pressing issues. We know that. And yet 65% are not going to be achieved unless they are localized. And yet I'm not sure that a lot of communities really have focused on the entirety of the SDGs. In addition to that, what we're seeing is that cross-sectoral, localized, high-impact approaches, that's what's needed. And yet, what we're often lacking is the policy and the funding, the capacity, and the how-tos to do that. Because we've been breaking things down into problems and we're staying in our silos, and that's not where the solutions are going to be. I think the other thing that has made this incredibly complicated is that there are many people doing portions of this work or something like the kind of work that Reset Communities is doing, but it's known by different names. So regenerative economics is big right now. The social solidarity economy has been endorsed by the United Nations. A lot of us have our roots in community-led development. Um, we've donut economics is another one, but there are so many different names. We're using more. Uh, we've kind of learned about what people generally understand, and we're referring to it more as a whole community approach or complete community approach. I think the reason why I wanted to share this is because this is what is creating some additional confusion for us who are trying to make a difference. But pay attention to any of these names and latch onto it. That's what I want to say, because they are all related in some ways, or they have an important piece of it. But I think all of these are really much more systemic in their approach rather than being linear and silo based. So just pay attention to them. Um, this surfaced in our work with ACE communities when we first started working with these communities. And it was significant for us. But again, it just shows what you can learn from working at the grassroots level and how smart people are about their own communities. But what started this off for me is that a futurist that I met, I've been really fortunate to hang out with a lot of really smart futurists. And one of them in our first conversation, what he said to me was, he said, Brenda, you do know that there are two kinds of change, right? And I said, no, because I didn't. And he said, there's change that reforms. And that change really just makes things more efficient and effective. And yes, that is important. And we still need to be more efficient and effective with what we are currently doing. But what we're not doing enough of is change that transforms. And that's, excuse me, that's where things become more innovative. Excuse me. So a lot of times we're cooperating with others. We know about traditional collaboration. That's getting us to change that reforms. Collective impact in a lot of ways has been really good, and there's still an important niche for collective impact, but it's really where it's problem-based and specific. It's about specific issues where people from different sectors come together to tackle a specific issue, whether it's housing or poverty, and they work collectively on that shared goal. But we found and observed, and this was really practice-based research for us, what we observed was working, wasn't necessarily collective impact. It was systemic, what we ended up calling systemic collaboration. And what that was about was letting bringing a diverse community together. But so we're bringing together government, social profits, businesses, and most importantly, individual community members. And we didn't start from a problem point of view. We started with their assets. What is it? What do you love about your community? What is working? But then we also talked about the challenges and as well as the opportunities. So it was something different. It was a different kind of leadership. And it was a different focus from the beginning because it built the capacity that was often missing. So what did we learn and why it's important? And I'm going to just stop for a minute after sharing this a little bit because I'm really interested in what you are seeing in your work as being important, if there's any relationship between what you are doing that is gaining you some traction. So the first thing that was so important was this importance of community-driven development. And what we just see that wisdom and expertise of those closest to the issues, we don't tap into that. We also saw that the SDGs allowed us to ensure global and local alignment because the UN SDG framework integrates social, environmental, and economic goals, and that's what sparks systems change a lot of times. The leadership was critical. Carol Peterson is on this call. She'll vouch for this in Alberta. One of the most amazing moments, and I don't think I will ever forget it, is that what we realized in one of the first meetings is that the only common denominator of communities that were doing well was leadership. And that's when we made a decision with our first $1 million was to focus on leadership. Impact-driven outcomes, the community needs to determine what is important, what it is, what their values are, what their visions are, and what the balance needs to be between economic, social, and environmental outcomes. Beginning with the assets I mentioned, that's really critical. The trusted relationships. I hear this a lot from everyone that I work with, that change doesn't happen without trust, and that trust is the foundation. One of our corporate sponsors told us that it's like building a house, that trusted relationships and the capacity for working collaboratively, that's the foundation, like the foundation for a house. And if that foundation isn't strong, the change initiatives are really challenging. And diversity, one of our colleagues in Alberta came up with a way of describing the innovation that resulted from diversity. And she referred to it as saying, the weirder the mix, the better the fix. And I think that helped us understand that innovation was social, that the more diversity you bring together in the room, the more innovative the solutions and the opportunities will be. And then the last one is about embracing the messy, because meaningful change, it's rarely linear. And it took a lot of courage on the part of local leaders and a lot of adaptability, I think, more than anything. So what I want to stop here, and I'm going to stop sharing just for a bit. And ask you to add into the chat what you think or which of these is resonating or have you seen in action?
Can you put the screen back up?
Oops, maybe I can, maybe not.
I can tell you what I remember is that the trusted thing really hit home, because this is one of the things that we deal with a lot, is that, and it's really, really important not to ignore the trust, because it has to have any kind of community effort or solution has to be built on a foundation of trust. And that's probably one of the hardest things to establish, as far as I know. And the messy, that made me laugh, because that's what we do. And anybody who comes onto the team, that's what I tell them. It's like, it's messy. It's messy. It's one thing I can guarantee is that I can't guarantee anything. And yeah. So and then yeah, all of it's really good. That's why I put that comment in the chat. It's great stuff.
Good. Thank you. And I think if I probably should number them this way and put trusted relationships up front, because I think that's one thing that I have heard a lot of. And I'm actually, Kristen Walsh is here she's also from Alberta. And I do remember when we worked together in your community at the time, Kristen, there was some messiness involved. But the trust does happen, I think, a lot of times, and it is about empowering people and making sure their voices are heard. I think that's probably one of the most meaningful things that happens. Just listening. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Okay, we'll move on because we have more. And they're not advancing. Can you see my screen? Yes. Okay. Yes, I got some.
Brenda.
Okay. Yes.
Hi. Hello. Hi. If you go back again to the previous slide, I have a question about that. I think this is a very good presented information. It's clear. My question is what is happening in reality today, and not specifically the case of Alberta, but in the case of what is happening in the world today. And I like the information that you present about the current challenges we have today. I would like to talk a little bit about and maybe listen the insights from you and other people about the concept of leadership for complexity and understanding, for example, what is happening today related with immigration or what is happening. And when you mentioned about people having voices, people are getting voices, but the consequences on people, what is happening in Los Angeles, in California, and all of these kind of the manifestations and all the risks that people are taking, and even the leaders are this diversity of leaders, but also the dominant who has how the power is moving, supporting a leader that maybe is in contradiction. Many of us maybe are in contradiction with the values of this
I
leader.
can see that. Yeah. And I promise you we will get to some of that. And I think other people in this meeting may have ideas as well. But we have some specific tools that will help with that, and an explanation of how we did that. And it's not to say that this is the only way, but it is a process that we observed was working. So really practice-based research, I guess, more than anything. So if you don't mind holding that, I promise that we'll get to it. That's
Sure,
okay.
no
Excellent.
problem.
Excellent.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Because one of the things that, and I guess this in a way, this next slide actually kind of addresses your issue, Melania, in some ways, because it's one of the things that we found could deal with conflict and create more meaningful conversations. There was a critical missing piece. What we found is that yes, we all agreed, everyone kept talking about the system's not working anymore, and the fact that we needed to bring together government and businesses. And in Canada, the federal government has a new way to describe the nonprofit or social profit sector. They're referring to them as the social purpose organizations. And we're really liking that because that definition includes charities, nonprofits, cooperatives, businesses with a primary social purpose. So it is a really different category. It's a little bit broader, but it's a good fit and it describes what we do. I think many of us would fall under that category. But the fourth sector that we've added, because we couldn't have done I don't think any of this work that we're talking about can be done without the local residents or the citizens. And we find that they were most impactful. They got things done because they weren't part of a formal system. Their system was much more informal. So those four sectors we learned needed to come together for innovation and transformative change. But what was missing is that we didn't have systems catalysts who could be the neutral cross-sector connectors so that this collaboration could be amplified. They were missing. And I know even in my own community, I asked elected officials, whose job is it to bring everyone together? And the most consistent answer that I received was, well, it's everyone's job. And I don't know about you, but what we learned is that when it's everyone's job, it ends up being no one's job. And so this piece, the systems catalyst, and I know a lot of you play that role now, and it's something that might have different names, but it does require a different set of competencies. So it's almost an emerging discipline. So the systems catalysts are important. So all of this kind of led to this moonshot vision that we're sharing with you today, which is really about resetting, accelerating, and scaling communities as ecosystems. A lot of funders right now are looking for high impact in ecosystems. That's what they're providing funding for. But I'm not hearing a lot of talk about seeing our communities as an ecosystem, but that's really what they are. So it isn't, because we're not stuck. It's not just about our respective silos or organizations. It all is interrelated in some way, especially with the complexity that we have today. But it is grounded in regenerative thinking, and not just taking resources out of the earth or away from a community, but it's really, and it's not just about sustaining them, it's about regenerating them, ensuring they will be regenerated. So that's the solution that kind of evolved. I think our approach is a little bit unique because it does some things that others might not be putting together. So again, it is about the local systems leadership, those systems catalysts. It's about the multi-sectors, bringing them together. We don't have specific practices or solutions for a community. There is no one best way. That's one of the things that we learned. But we have a process that has been based on what communities did that contributed to their success. The venture building capacity, I have to tell you, coming from predominantly out of the social purpose sector, although I'm kind of an entrepreneur, I suppose. I kind of resisted pulling in the venture building side, the economic side of a community. I didn't necessarily see that as our expertise. We were in the business of creating social innovation, not necessarily improving economic impact, economic development. And what we realized is that it's not enough. That there needs to be social innovation as well as economic and environmental innovation. So we've built in support for local enterprises that are determined as a priority by the community. We're also really big on looking at equitable or shared ownership of those enterprises so that everyone wins, that everyone benefits, and therefore everyone is committed. So things like cooperatives and employee-owned businesses, that kind of thing. We're focused on including advanced technology as well as AI, but they are simply tools that can help a community grow and learn. And I think the other thing that makes us a bit different is the opportunities that we are providing for peer-to-peer sharing and learning, because that we have to look at training and learning in a very different way, and that's something that we've done over a lot of years. So we have this vision that you can see here, but it ultimately is about increasing a community's responsiveness, how they respond to complex challenges and opportunities. And we're doing that by collaborating with others like you who can provide a variety of support and services that enhance the big picture, which is social, economic, and environmental well-being. We have spent a lot of time thinking about our values, and I have to tell you, I've been involved in strategic planning for a lot of years. I think values are actually more important these days than a vision and strategies, because the world is changing so rapidly. So when we make decisions, we have to go back to what a community has said is important. Now, your values for your own community or neighborhood or region may be different, but it's important that everyone has a say in them and understanding what is important. What is it we care about? And most importantly, what does it look like? So there's a link here into another document that shares more information about our values and our principles. And that is the best time you can spend, because this is where a lot of the conflict can be deflected, is when you start to talk about what you have in common and what you all value. So instead of seeing differences, you, I think, learn to suspend judgment of one another, which is really what cultural competence is all about. So applying this kind of approach, we've seen different kinds of high-level impact, and that because that's really what the funders are looking for these days. They want high-level community impacts, or sometimes referred to as benefits or outcomes. And so this won't be a surprise to you, but it has a significant impact quite rapidly because it is community driven. I think the challenge for us and for a lot of us has been that we need more visibility, more funding, and policy influence for systems innovators and entrepreneurs. So that's one of the things that we're going to keep working on. The strategic priorities, and this is the full stack menu of services kind of organized into 4 chunks. That's a really sophisticated term, right? Chunks. Sorry. So the first thing, sorry, go ahead. No? Okay. 4 areas of focus. One is the leadership capacity of systems catalysts. What we are working on is a micro credential. And again, this speaks to the fact that I don't know about you, but I'm not sure I got any training for how to do this. It was, I think, especially a lot of community developers, we learned this by the seat of our pants and off the side of our desk. There wasn't any formal training in colleges or universities. So what we're talking about now is a micro credential, a certification, a professional development certification, or an option for an add-on to any university degree or diploma. That is about learning by doing more than anything, and we are and have learned a great deal about building interactive platforms peer-to-peer. So that will be important. We're looking at these pilot communities who will be, their local team will be coached and provided with resources and developed as a community of practice, and will be helped with the measurement part of this. There will be support for community-led social purpose businesses and enterprises, and the coaching to ensure their investment readiness, and then introductions to potential opportunities and funders. So kind of a matching service, almost like a dating service. And then overall networking. And I'll tell you, I wish funders understood more the value of networking. We need a network of networks, not only at the grassroots level, but to connect the grass tops to the grassroots, because there's a gap there right now, which is why a lot of our decision making hasn't necessarily been all that informed, because we're disconnected from one another, the grass tops and the grassroots. So just a few more slides, and then I'm sure you'll have lots of questions. This is the simplest way to describe this process. This is the process that we learn through trial and error. It begins with a local cohort of impact catalyst leaders. This is a small group, usually like 4 to 8. They are the ones that we will be supporting, and they are the neutral catalysts who bring the rest of the community together. That's the first step. The second one is that what we learned is that this is overwhelming to really think about a whole community at one time. We do nudge them with the community report card. We do nudge people to think of their community as an ecosystem, and they look at what they're doing well and what needs some work. And out of that comes an idea, in every case, an idea for a quick success project. And what we learned is that it really doesn't matter what that project is. We saw projects, one that celebrated Indigenous youth in a community, community gardens, community greenhouses. Another community built a trail system. Another formed a green energy co-op. Another formed an investment co-op to support local businesses. So it doesn't matter what that quick success project is. And I mean, one of the communities, one of the most successful, started by rebuilding a children's playground. And they did it in one day, kind of like a barn raising bee. So it doesn't really matter what that quick success project is. But this is where the trust starts. This is where the conflict is deflated, and this is where hope and trusted relationships really, really are nurtured. And what we found then is that leads to really being stronger and more willing and able to understand the systemic collaboration and the change that's needed for these complex challenges. And there was a greater willingness to do that. So that's it in a simple way. Oh, Sorry, did
Vậy
you,
là sao? Có biết không? À,
Abdul, did you want to speak up? I'm sorry, I'm not quite hearing you all that well, but was that you? No, background noise. Okay. Well, when we talk about systems catalysts and the competencies that are needed, I just wanted you to know that we started on this many, many years ago, and we did it at every focus group. This even started when I was teaching at Niagara College years ago. Every focus group we had, we asked people, what do you see in your leaders? What do you want to see? What's missing? And that's where this came from. We didn't want to develop our own assessment tool, but we couldn't find a leadership assessment tool that really spoke to working at a broader level. And so these 8 competencies, as you can see, came from those discussions. Each of these competencies has indicators to show when that is actually delivered. What are the indicators of that? And also the curricula. So we've had, I think, just under 500 alumni who have completed our own courses. So it's a starting point. It will need to be adjusted for different cultures and countries and different languages, but it's a jumping off point. So we're not starting from scratch. That's really what I wanted to say about that. So any comments about these competencies? Did they resonate with you? I'm seeing some nods. This is good. Okay. Okay, so I'll keep going then. We'll just open things up and have you ask any questions that you want or make any comments. These are just some testimonials that we received about our training. So it was done in different communities over a lot of different area, but the comments, the feedback were really important. Were really important, and a lot of it was because we learned, it was more of an apprenticeship model. You learn something, you go out, you do it, you come back and you talk about it with your peers. And it's broken down into small pieces, so different kind of learning. And we're also in the process of building a Reset Communities platform where these members can continue to learn and grow. So we don't have best practices. We have a menu of possibilities and promising practices. Research will be held there. Taking ideas to market, accelerating innovation, and a learning center. A lot of the learning will be informal, and this certification for Systems Catalyst really is optional. And here's the report card that I mentioned. It started out, it's warm data, as a brilliant woman named Nora Bateson came up with that term because it's not fact-based necessarily. It can't necessarily be proven. But it is still important. So the warm data is what she describes as fitting in around within a system. And so that's what we were trying to capture. We were always trying to take the pulse of a community to say, how are we doing? So we broke it down into all of these, and it's done in a group setting, but it's done by you individually, and the results are shared. And it's simply assigning for each of these indicators an A, B, C, D, or F. It has been extraordinarily powerful, and now it is also framed within the SDGs, so people can immediately see how this also relates. This local action, these local issues and opportunities can relate globally to the UN. So lots of other tools I won't go into, but we have a community development planning framework. We have sometimes an organization doesn't have the capacity for innovation and transformation, so we have this assessment tool. We have the process laid out for how this will roll out, and we know a little bit more about the target audiences. So I'm just going to stop there.